Yeah. Let's see. Edit privacy. Okay, should be. All right. Okay, so we're good. Wonderful. Good night, everyone. Good night, good night, good night. How are you all doing? I woke up this morning and I said, Lord, what should I do for free? You see, it's very difficult to do a program, especially when you wanna do something that you know the Lord would have you to speak on, because I just don't want to come on Facebook simply because I have a program called Real to Real and just talk about anything. But the theme of this program really is to deal with stuff that we kind of don't want to speak on because it makes us unpopular. It makes us sometimes it gets us in trouble. But it's something that really needs to be addressed. So I woke up this morning with a thought in mind, and actually last night I was watching a program, which you will hear some more about in a few minutes, and they were pretty much touching on some of these same things. And I said, okay, God, maybe that's confirmation that you want me to address this topic. And mostly I woke up with this word why. Like, we do so many things in the body of Christ. We do a lot of things and we never ask, why are you doing that? Because it's not some of the times it's not scriptural. Some of the times it's just because everybody else is doing it, or because you came into the church and saw it, everybody doing that, or you were told that is what you should be doing, and you never ask questions. So you just do it, and you find that maybe 10, 20 years down the line, you never really know if you're really saved, if you really have a relationship with Christ, or you were just doing it because somebody told you this is how it's done. And that's why we have so many issues with folks not being able to be firm in their beliefs. Some of them don't even, if you ask them what they believe in, they can't really tell you. If you ask them why they do what they do, they can't tell you, because they just come see everybody else doing it. And so it just seems like the right thing to do. And so you never ask why. A lot of things that is expected of us as church folks is done simply because we were told this is what you should do, or we just watch everybody else do it and just fall in line. So the question is, are we inviting people to Christ, or we're inviting them to a program, where they're programmed? It's almost like they're zombies. Why you do it? Well, my pastor said this, or my deacon says this, or my church sister said this, or what, or I really don't know, because everybody else is doing it, so I figure, hey, that's right. And it sounds probably strange, but it's very true, because it happened to me. Because most of what I did coming up in the church was simply because I was programmed. I came into a program, and you do what everybody else is doing. You don't ask questions. If you ask questions, you're rude, or you're disrespectful, or how dare you question the man or woman of God, because no one has ever done it. You're doing the one thing that nobody has ever done. And I have always been kind of inquisitive, and I want to know, because I feel kind of stupid just doing something simply because I'm told. So I always get in trouble for asking. When I was in Bible college, I put my hands up more than anybody else. And sometimes when you ask questions, you're looked at as you're probably stupid or uninformed. But really, that's what questions are there for, and that's what teachers are there for, to teach you. And when a teacher gets annoyed, I said, look, that's your job. You're here to teach me. And if you're not able to teach me, then you're in the wrong profession. Or if you get frustrated because I'm asking too many questions, this is not for you. And so last night I was watching a program with Minister Garvey and Pastor Bishop Wallace, I believe, and Dr. Harvey, and they were talking a lot about the same thing. And she's doing setting up a program called Saving the Next, or Rescuing the Next Generation. And if we can't give an answer as to why we're doing what we're doing, how are we going to educate, or what are we leaving for the next generation? Because to be quite frank, a lot of what we're doing is based on tradition or what we want to do or how we like doing it because it feels comfortable for me. It's okay. It's easier not to ask questions because you fit in. It's easier not because you don't want to be singled out as a troublemaker or why you're ruffling feathers. Hey, we've done this for 20 years. What makes you think because you are just coming, it is wrong or, you know? And so that's been what's been rolling around in my head. And the decisions we make, the spouses we choose, right? Having children or not having children. And all of these things are stuff that is put upon us simply because it's what you do, right? You don't do this, you don't do that, you don't go here, you don't go there, because that's what I've done. So for example, when I invite someone to the church, I tell them, well, and they ask me why. I say, well, come here, come see everybody. But come here, come see everybody else to do it then. So it is it is what it is. I don't have any issues in about me. So me just don't, I just don't deal with it. Yeah. So yeah. So on that note, I'm going to invite one of my surprise guests one at a time, and that's Resurrection Harvey. And last night she was talking about um um rescuing the next generation, and that's a huge topic. That's a massive topic. To rescue somebody, you've got to be very skillful. um um you have to be very skilled based on what you need to rescue that individual from, right? So if you're a rescuer, if you understand what rescuing is, they call you for all kinds of situations. There is no one-dimensional problem that you if you're a rescuer, you've got to be skilled in all area of danger or so. So this woman has taken up this major call or mandate. And so these are some of the things that they were kind of tapping into last night. But I'm going to go all in tonight and to look at this church. If we're doing church, or if we're doing tradition, if we're inviting people to a program, just come and do program, because that's what we've been doing all of these years. And why? And if you ask why, can you tell somebody why? Woman of God, I'm going to bring you in to give you a little intro. How are you? And I'm so appreciate you. McCall, just a half an hour ago, I said, Lord Jesus, I put myself in some hot water and I need help. So she said, don't worry, got you. I'll call the team. So she rallied up the team, and they're here. I know Bishop Wallace is not here yet, but they're coming. I think I see Bishop Harvey, Minister Harvey in the back. Go ahead, woman of God. What is your little take on what I'm going to discuss tonight?
So I believe that. Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining, and thank you so much for inviting me, even if it's short notice.
Short notice, yeah. That's what I love about you. When I figure a long invitation, I go to no management or booking agent.
Nah, I believe that God is doing I think God is restoring. Not think, I know God is really restoring the body and giving us information concerning who we are, why are we here, and what is our purpose. The reason why there's so much chaos in the body and everybody wanting to do everything and nobody knows where they fit in, you know, is because a lot of us don't have a foundation. We don't have an assignment really. And the reason why we don't have a foundation or an assignment is because we've never really built a relationship with God. Right. To hear from him, for the Holy Spirit to give us direction and instruction. One of the things I loved about Jesus is that he knew his assignment from birth, even as a child. And I remember there's a story in the Bible about him being at a wedding, and Mary said, come, the wine is finished. And he was saying, look, it's not yet my time. We,
Mm-hmm.
we're at a place where we don't even know times and seasons. We're unaware concerning the kingdom's agenda. And because of that, I believe that that is one of the number one reason why there's so much chaos happening in the body and everybody is running around like a headless chicken. Everybody feels like they have to be anointed this way and they have to flow that way. When something as simple as feeding the homeless is a ministry, not because you want to get recognition or you want people to see or you want people to just sow into you as a person,
Mm-hmm.
but it is on God's agenda. Him say feed the hungry, go to the
Right.
sick, go to the shut in. And so you realize that Christ demonstrated all of these things when he was here on earth. And so because we don't know who we are, we don't know where we fall in, we don't have an assignment, we really don't know our role in kingdom. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of chaos happening. And because there's so much chaos happening, we've not paid attention to God's agenda. And one of the number one things on God's agenda right now is the next generation. Because the truth is we're not going to be here forever. I mean, it is appointed unto man to live and once to die. And every year, every day, we're getting older. And so there's no forerunner. We have been so busy trying to be the next best thing that and the truth is sometimes there's really nothing to pour into the next generation either. So maybe it's a good thing that there was no pouring out really. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that everybody is in the same boat, but there's an issue, there's a problem, and the enemy has capitalized on this problem so much that he has captured a lot of our young people, a lot of our babies, a lot of those who we should be raising up for kingdom. And so I believe that God designed this project for us to start imparting into the next generation the things that we missed really. And a lot of the chaos that is going on now, I believe that God wants to fix it through the next generation.
Correct. But here's the question: if I cannot explain to you what I have learned, or what I've gleaned from my forerunners, so to speak, what am I passing on? Are we passing on tradition? Are we passing on knowledge? And especially coming out of mostly a lot of the Caribbean culture is very difficult to sit with them and ask them, okay, why did we do this? Why, you know, I remember I went home one day from church and I just dropped on the bed and I was like, God, I'm so confused because I really don't know what just happened. And I need you to talk to me, because sometimes we are brought up to think that, and I understand where you're talking about passing down, but we need to go back to just step back a few steps before we even talk about passing anything on to the next generation, because a lot of the things that we're passing on, is it scripture, is it religion, is it tradition, is it based on culture? What are we passing on? Because I think a lot of folks are in church 10, 20, 30 years and they've never really understood why they do. Why do you wear certain things? Why you don't wear certain things? Why do you do that? I'll give a prime example. Well, maybe it's not prime, but a lot of us make decisions. I remember, okay, let me use myself then if we're going to be real. Um, when I got divorced, I said the next time I get married, I'm not asking anybody. And me not tell nobody. Me just go do a thing and just you're just gonna find out somebody married. And I say that because there is what is expected of you as a minister or versus a regular church member. If you marry a simpleton, as Jamaicans would call it, why you never marry a minister? We never marry this, whatever. It's like all these things are put upon you to make decisions based on what, and I felt like I keep making decisions based on what church expects of me, but not necessarily what God expects of us to do. And I don't know if anybody else is caught up in that mindset at time. Not that you're controlled by the system, but the first thing you think, what are they going to say about this? Is it going to be accepted because it's not the norm? I'm tired of doing the norm because it's not working for me. And if I want to step out of the norm, then it's like you're backslidden or you've been rebellious. But the norm, whatever that norm was, did not make any sense.
You know what I love about the Father that we have is that, and if we go into the Bible and look, we always see God raising up. There's a man, many persons would say a man, but there's always a man that God is always raising up to restore the breach, right? There's always a man that God is raising up to restore order. And it is always a man that was not popular on the scene or nobody knew about. But God, listen, it's like when you hear about the story about when Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac, and the angel said there's a ram in the thicket. God never leaves his people just like that. And we oftentimes talks about those that he would have had in hiding, or many would say hibernation, being prepared for such a time as this. And I believe, woman of God, that we are in an era where, just like how there's a burden on your heart for the condition of the body right now, there are others. It's just that, your you come out and talk about it because the Lord gave you this appointed time to come out now and mention. And what this is doing is setting off a chain reaction, because there are others who have the burden concerning where the body is right now. And I believe that God is raising up men and women of God with his heart and his mindset concerning man, right? It has never really changed his love for man. He made us in his image and his likeness, and he has an agenda concerning man. And he's raising up men and women who have his heart and his agenda concerning kingdom. And I believe that, it has started, right? And I'm careful of the word I'm using, but there's a lot of correcting that is going on little by little concerning where we are now, and an order is being restored. It might not be on a big scale now where it looks very obvious, but little by little there's order being restored. And I believe that we will get to a place soon enough where there'll be some order restored to the body of Christ. And there'll be those that God would have raised up that will be in a position, who would have fed of him, ate of him, spent time with him, bask in his presence. Just like how when Paul got his experience on the road to Damascus, and he started building a relationship with God through the Holy Spirit. And then you had like the apostles who had the experience in the upper room. And so they did not just know of God, but they knew God enough to know the Holy Spirit. And so even when the woman that had the divination came and were saying, oh, these are men of God, and was operating and giving information, they could say, Satan will rebuke you, because this is not the Spirit of God. And I believe that there are those that God would have had in hiding, that nobody really knows about, the nobodies, the stones that the builder refused, that God is raising up to come and just stand in place. Because listen, we're talking about God, we're talking about kingdom, we're talking about the Almighty, the Supreme Jehovah. And even though it might look like he's not doing anything and he's silent, believe me, there are those that he has had in training, right? Some for decades. I remember a man of God said that the Lord gave him a word, a promise, and it's been 25 years, and he's still waiting on God to manifest that promise in his life. And so I believe that there are those that God would have had in training, even 25 years, who are burdened just like how you are burdened now for the condition of the body. And just like how the Lord caused you to come out now with this, there are others that will not just come up, but they will start pouring into and bring correction to the body.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the stars, Felicia, and who's the next person? And Chantel, thank you so much. Yes, that is a good point. I when I come up, when I speak on something, I know it's not just a one individual thing. It's I know there are pockets of people all over the world that are feeling that burden, and most times we don't,
Mhm.
we talk amongst ourselves, and sometimes we complain amongst ourselves, and but we don't really address it where the in the right platform where, where there can be change. For example, I remember I had a incident when I was in Bible college
Mhm.
where
Mhm.
I had a um we had a complaint as the student body, and we were talking about it. Yes, we don't like this, we don't like that, blah blah. And said, okay, when we have the meeting, we're all going to speak up. When we got to the meeting, I started to speak, and everybody who was with me when we're talking about it in the behind the scene, they all left me running, and left me one as, and I like, oh boy, you're the only one who has the problem. And the reason why they backed up was the person that we were addressing, who was ahead of the worship that we were addressing. The person started to cry. So when they saw the tears, everybody felt sorry for the individual and start back up and, make it look as if, it's okay. They didn't have a problem anymore. I'm saying that to say this, that we have a lot to say about the issues behind the scene. People talk about it during church, after church, on their way to church and whatever. And as they get there, they go back into the same rut of the things that they've been complaining about. And they cannot explain to you why they do what they do. And the subheading for this thing tonight, this is a real to real Jesus moment, because when I say that, because I'm in the face of God, because I want to, even at this stage, being saved for how many years, I still feel that I'm still under the bondage of tradition, and I want to break free from it, because I feel that I've lost so much time. Let me read this. Yeah, let me read this. We need to get back to the basics. The physical body must function at a certain level, which is nutrition. The mind needs to be fed and right images and the right form of communication with power and love. It's a, yeah, it's a long it's a long thought there. But yeah, that they pretty much they're in agreement with the body needs to be fed. We have very we are many of us are malnutrition, and we may you've been in church for 20 years and you cannot show what you have accomplished, if you have grown, why you do what you do. I said, just do what I do. I mean, just go and do it. You ask too much questions, stuff like that. And so you say, well, it's not. I can't ask anything about this because I'm going to be rebuked, right? And so I wish people would just be honest and speak up, and then and so that we can address some of these issues. Because if we don't, we won't have anything to pass on to the next generation, which is very sad. So I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, yeah, yeah, really, why did I do that? And I can't even explain why I spent 5, 6 years under a leadership when really I was not being fed anything but tradition, and just told what to do and what not to do, when to do it, how to do it, and why to do it, but never confronted it for myself and to find out why, if it's right, wrong, or whatever. I'm not seeing. I see Dr. Harvey, but I don't see his picture, so I don't know if he's on or what's the situation. Oh, there he is. I'm gonna bring on Dr. Harvey right now. Good night, man of God. How are you?
Good night, good night, good night. How are you doing?
Wonderful. First time meeting you. Welcome to the program, and thank you for the last minute invite. As I
Yeah,
said, watching you
I'm being,
guys.
I'm being, I'm being, I'm being, I'm being led. So
Oh, okay. That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
yeah,
Welcome. I'm
yeah,
sure you've heard some of the conversation we're having in the
yes,
background.
right.
Are we wrestling with, is it a traditional problem? Is it a religious problem? Is it a cultural problem? How can we get from A to B? How can we break some of these bondages so that we do have something? Because it's a nice title, it's a nice theme, rescue the next generation. It's a nice theme, rescue. But how do we go about that if we don't have anything to feed? If you're malnutrition, it's very difficult to feed somebody if you don't understand what nutrition is, to give nutrition to somebody when you've not really experienced it. So yeah, on that note, what's your introductory statement in all of this?
Well, first of all, I must say that the word rescue is associated with my early life
Mm-hmm.
because I was in a real bad situation, and I was rescued through an organization.
Okay.
And for that purpose, I believe that I'm obligated to create a platform to mentor others, to facilitate others to not end up into that situation, so they might not even get the opportunity to be rescued. And
Mm-hmm.
so when Mr. Garvey talked about the word rescue, she didn't realize that the same word she used in her line of speech is the same word that I am using in mine because of the nature of my experience. And so I believe, though, and she said something that if you're not prepared to make that contribution, our experience, when put together, create a nice platform for sustainable information as it relates to how we transmit this information, though is a next situation. But our experience carries that kind of information. So not to take away from the main focal point, but to make an impact into a positive way. So even though our life story may be tragic, as they would say, it can be in psychology they call it like a terror theory. We use it sometimes to drive fear into one to make change.
Mm-hmm.
But when you really look at our stories, they really have some significant positives. And so for that, we complement each other. So I would address the psychological and the sociological aspect of this whole process. Mr. Garvey is more rooted and stronger in that area. So I think that makes it more complementary. But I want to say though that many people just think that you are a physical human being only. And as we were discussing, people don't realize that you're a whole human being. You have physical, you have spiritual, you have psychological, you have emotional. And so in our exposure in the church, we are starved or we are malnourished in certain area based upon the they call it the association of the culture of
Yeah.
teaching of uh, the Bible or teaching of Christianity. And as such, there's a next thing they call it group thing, where you associate with a group because what they do you like at first, and then you just become a part of it and you continue the process. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a perpetuation of we don't even know if it's negative to us or positive.
That's true.
One of the things that we haven't done in psychology, the push for you to do exploration. The more you explore, the more you understand. And you spoke about it earlier on. And so the way we were taught, it creates, sorry to say this, but it creates
Mm-hmm.
a kind of structure. I don't want to use the right word that I have in my head, but it creates a kind of structure, and we get fixated in this structure
Right, right, right.
where we don't, as you said earlier, we don't even tend to even look to say, why this, why that. And so one of the philosophers, they really challenge human being. You should be able to can ask a number of questions, and there is the truth, and the truth. And so you have your truth, my truth, and you have the real truth. But if you just accept what somebody says, you're accepting their truth. What is your truth? And what is
That's
the truth that is above that God's truth? And so in this whole psychological paradigm, we take away how we think, or our cognition work, how we feel, our emotion. And if you think about it, as I was reflecting, there's quite a number of young people got pregnant in the church while they were saved, and
mm-hmm.
they just couldn't understand the phenomenon because there was a missing ingredient. There was a gap in feeding into that part of the human, which is the psychology, and it takes away from it. Like we don't drop from heaven or the sky, so there should be a teaching in the church about sexual behavior, not just condemn it, right? Teach the nuances of it, and so people can understand the fundamentals. And what is crazy about some of the action is that if you and I were in the church and we stop and start talking together, you gotta get married because you're talking. And one psychologist said that before you even married to somebody that you're going to be having children with, there should be a research where you look at who they are, where they're coming from, what's the root, what are the nuances. Because
Right.
in many cases, in many divorces that are coming from a church, we found out some of these things while we were married, and we're like, whoa. And so we lose ourselves in church, and we lose the marriage as well, where if the church had paid some attention into allowing us to do that kind of research, we would have followed quite a bit, and probably some of those problems would come up. And some of the children, and I learned this. Did you know that some of the children that are born in some of the relationship, sorry to say, if they were done proper research, they wouldn't have experienced certain things. So they would have born, but there's certain things that wouldn't come up on them, because the whole psychodynamism would have been different.
Right.
So, in our churches, I think we need to create that platform for the interjection of the psychology, the sociology, and not to push it away, because it can't compete with the Bible. When I actually look at the psychology books, most of them were written resembling the Bible. They actually just carry it over in a different way.
Right.
And so the Bible is the biggest psychology book, but a lot of people don't accept it as a book like that, and it teaches literally everything. So I was looking at it in the book once. It have message for depression. In the psychology book, we have chapter for depression. It tells you how to deal with depression. We have psychology book that tell you how to deal with depression. It talk about progress and success. You have psychology. It's there. Everything is there. And so whoever were teaching us, they only focus on one aspect, and so we become unbalanced.
Yeah,
One-dimensional, and it creates a lot of catastrophe. And the end product is that we end up with children, which is the byproduct of this, and hence we open a portal of altars that are very, very negative and create a whole heap of different dynamism. For example, we would go to Sunday school naturally. Today's generation, we who used to go to church don't even send them, so they don't even go. So there is the psychology of going to Sunday school has diluted, because we never know the real reason for going to Sunday school. So we can't convince this generation that it's important. And so there we go with the whole thing. Yes.
Yeah, it's a pattern that we have just become used to,
Yes.
and we can't break out of it. It's almost like breaking out of it, you're committing some serious diabolical sin, you know what I mean? And so when you think of the response you're going to get from breaking away, you just stay in it because you don't want to ruffle any feathers or be seen as being rebellious. Yeah, because you're not falling in line with what was set before you. And like you said, it's a taught. It's something that was taught. So like the question I'm asking, are we inviting people to a program, or we're inviting them to Christ? And the text that came to my mind was when Jesus asked Peter, who do men say that I am? And Peter says, thou art the Christ. And he says, on that revelation, I'm going to build my church, because you understand who I am. You know who I am. You know why I came. You know the purpose of what the church has come to do. So based on that revelation, I'm going to build it on that, because you have a clear understanding of what church should be. So we preach these things, and we knock and we spit and we shout and do all of this stuff, and yet we're still not really teaching what Peter saw, when Jesus received the revelation he got when Jesus asked the question. And so because of that, we're still stumbling, and we're still fumbling, and we're like I said to Resurrection Garvey, passing on in rescuing somebody, you've got to have the skills to do that, and the training to do that, the learning to do that. So what are we passing on? And like somebody said, this generation is not accepting everything, so they are seen as rebellious. However, there is a shift as individuals are hungry for change, transparency, true relationship, and the Rhema word. Yes, I agree with that. So if we're gonna pass on the baton, or we're gonna rescue we better be prepared and have something. Because when you rescue somebody, it necessarily means that you have an answer to what they're going through, right? You have a safe place for them to come to. You have the medical equipment and all this stuff, that the nutrition, all of that, when you rescue them, you've got to bring them back to life.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much what you're saying. But so what are some of the things that we can, how do we break the back of this tradition? Is it a traditional problem? Is it a religious problem? Is it a cultural problem? What is the problem that we're struggling to pass on to these generation? What is the big what you call it, elephant in the room that we need to really address?
I think we need to go back to the home, and Reverend Garvey would back me up on this. The home creates the platform for growth and development. So the first home would be the womb of the woman. And that's where everything starts from. The whole assimilation of information, of behavior start, mood, and then you have the traits that are transferred, the genes, and then you have the practices. So if a child is in that home and he or she gets the feeding from that mother about all these things in the community, as a human being, you get it's called fixation, which is a strong word, but in the womb you get that fixation, and when you come out of the womb, they perpetuate that fixation, and it continues. With Reverend Garvey and I, we come with a complement of strong word, ministerial word, plus experience from her end, and I come with experience plus a little bit of the ministerial word with a little bit of psychology to support it. Because one of the things I think has been missing is that amalgamation of understanding how the human mind operates within the body, and then when you put the spirit aspect of it to make it work. And I feel that we are laying the foundation for great change. A writer, Ellen G. White, said education is supposed to create a change, and we're supposed to use that change to help and enhance each other for the glory of God. So once we create that platform, which is what we're doing right now, and we're teaching positivity, we're not using it only from the Bible sense. So when Reverend Garvey used the Bible, I come in with the psychology and the natural. Because so the background that I am coming from is pure raw inner city with a little bit of psychology and a little bit of Bible. But also I come with a practice, because I've been practicing in this area for a number of years, and I've seen quite a number of stories how the family have broken down, and the main part of the family is the leader. God gave us a leader. The man is the first creation on earth. He is the leader. He gave us the power and dominion over everything. And so when we take ourselves away from the home as the male, we can't protect our family and our children from any things coming in to damage the family, any altars coming in to set up. We can't provide any love and affection for growth and development, which the Bible talk about. The fundamental is love. We can't provide any kind of self-security to our children's mother and the children. And as a man, we can't lead and mentor. And so we were talking about mentorship in a psychological way, where when he's in the home, he doesn't have to do much. Just being there is a significant spiritual, physical, psychological influencer. Just you talk about influence. Just a man being at home, just think about it. I'm gonna tell your father that he's not behaving. As him hear the mother say that him start behave. The father don't have to say, Junior, come here. By the time say Junior behave. So when we have to go back to the home, and Stacey and I share the same philosophy. This single woman, single mother, single parent philosophy that we're pushing, it's creating a dichotomy in our country, and it's pushing the men aside because they now feel that, oh, them can lose their responsibility because the woman will take over. The women need to stop saying that, because what we're doing, we're driving a wedge in the family and shutting. You ever see them shut the door and put a big thing, stick behind it and lock it? The men can't come in on his dear home. So even if they don't live there, no, it's still their home because they have children there and they have. So let them in and make some arrangement through Christ. Here what I want to start with, and Stacey and I are working on it. One of the formula is, women, let us pray for our fathers, our gentlemen, our husband, our baby father, our boyfriend. Let's just pray for them. Because truth to be told, I was coming home with Stacey this evening, and she gave me this whole mammoth of distraction that a woman can just distract a man's mind and make his mind just go wayward. And so, so when a woman pray for a man, in the spirit, it's going to lift his psychology. It's going to lift his emotions. It's going to lift his self-esteem. because he's now fed with quality words of prayer from above through the vine of a woman. And if you look at Proverbs 21 and the whole of Proverbs, it states that if a woman can do this, a man.
Oh, you're gone. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry about. So we want to start in the home and work with the women that are there and the men that are there and rebuild. And any man or woman that is not there, we want them to come back home. And even if they want to stay at the gate to start and start work their way back in. And the women need to understand that our children need love. Sad to say, they don't really need no clothes. You know? You get them the clothes and take it and put it down. Then where's my daddy? My mom and daddy, them get the press. We test a number of children in Jamaica, and you know many of them promising to do suicide, promising to come in. When you check it, one young lady told me that, sir, my father promised me KFC almost years ago. She said, act out. We said, KFC. She said, yes. She says, not the KFC, you know, sir, is the promise. And so our fathers need to come back in the home and see if we can rebuild it through the spirit, the social, the psychological, the mentoring, the peering up and thing. Right, Stacey?
Yeah, I'm gonna have you speak for in a minute, JC, but
Yes.
I'm very practical. I'm very, very, very practical in my thinking and in my way of doing things. And so for me, if I see some of us, we have to go through all of these doors and around the corner to get to deal with the issue that is right in front of you. The in passing on the baton, we first need to bridge some of the gaps from the old to the new, right? There's an importance for the tradition, and there's importance for the elders. How do we bridge two of them so that we can, because it's very difficult. There's a saying, you can't teach an old dog new trick. And you're going in these homes with these parents who are parents of these same kids that you're gonna have to, you're trying to rescue, right? How do you bridge the gap? I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. I see you smile, Minister Tracy. Well, you see where I'm coming from, because we're talking about breaking the back of tradition as well, our religion, and the thing that we've been stifling and burying in. You guys have this new wave, this new thing that you think you can bring to the table, but if the stronghold of tradition is there, how do you break that? How do you bridge the gap between the two? Because there's a value in all of that we're trying to bring to the table. Like there's value in tradition, and there's value in the culture, things that we've learned, things that we've been doing, but at the same time, it can stifle us, or it can stagnate us, and at the same time we can't really throw it out the door. So how do you bridge the gap so that they don't think that we're dismissing what they believe and dismissing what they've been doing all these? How do you bridge that gap without insulting that that mindset, if that's the right way of putting it? I don't know.
Well, I was watching a movie recently, because I use a movie sometimes to prepare, and there's a movie called Aquaman. I don't know if you ever watched the movie, but he's from the sea. His mother is a mermaid, and his father is a human, and so they got a child. So he's half man, half fish. And so what happened? For the two worlds to come together, the two world was in conflict. From then, the two world was in conflict, and today the two worlds still in conflict, because the sea.
I'm glad you used that word.
Yeah, the sea. Yeah. The sea is still powerful and
Yes.
and stuff under the sea and so. And what happened though when the war was going on? They realized that the two brothers was fighting. Aquaman realized that for me to make this world, both the sea and the land, come together, because I am half, is for us to put both values together on the table, and let us both try and understand the two value system, and let us teach each other the other value system and see how we understand it. And once we understand both, because there is prudence in each of the different system, and we want now to, for the older folks to understand that we're not dichotomizing it. We are trying to amalgamate it and use it in the best interest for growth and development. And when I saw that movie, it was awesome. And you know who was the glue to it? The mother. What happened is she took herself away and went into exile for safety. And it seemed like she was going through a lot of prayer. And then when the time for her to came out, she came out and found the son. And then the son won the war, the one Aquaman. So to answer your question, this we actually started. This is a discussion that we're having, because these things never used to be discussed on this platform. So we started the discussion, and so we are bringing the psychology in with the Bible. Many times I go in where people say, "It's the first I hear somebody talk about Bible and psychology." So it is there now, and we actually started. So
Mhm.
you doing this function right now, evangelist Providence. This is the platform. We started it. So we're actually opening up the doors. We're going to get perspective from various angles, the deeper perspective, the psychological, the spiritual, the Bible, and people are start understanding both sides. And I think with that, if we keep on doing this for another year or two, and as Stacey said, we start going to the churches, we start making impact. And there's a psychology that we are going to push called the positive psychology. It's not new. It's actually in the Bible. But this guy named Martin Silman came up with it. And what he's saying is that let us look at what is good in you. And some people can't even look at you and tell you something good. So I'm looking at you and I see that nice, calm, cool, and composed evangelist Providence. And I see this a liquidated Stacy. That's positive. Some people can't even say anything positive to each other. And so if we start infusing positivity, you don't have to know anybody. The thing about it is that we are made so good that you can just look at somebody and see good things. But we were unable to say these things because of the old way. And for example, if I were to say something to a lady, which I've done, she's like, where you want now? You don't, you don't have to want anything. I'm trying to give you an upliftment. And so I think that barrier, we're breaking it down with positivity. We can do it through the psychology, we can do it through the spiritual, we can do it through the Bible, we can do it through socialization. Recently I got a hug from a lady. I gotta tell you, I can't call her name. And it was a refreshing kind of hug. Some people hug it, you don't feel nothing. Psychologists talk about hug is very important. So our children are not being hugged. Mother now hug them, father now hug them. So I said, lad, boy, you don't need to get no hug. Yeah, it has a place in the psychology. And so what we started it,
Or
and all
man,
we do
man,
is continue it.
man of a cry and all
Yeah, and
these
all yeah, exactly.
things. But what are some of the things? One of the things I did when I teach worship, and I realized that when I teach the team um worship and they go to church on a Sunday morning, there's still a disconnect between the praise team and the general congregation. So I spoke to the pastors. I said, look, it's better if I come in on a Sunday morning or one of the days when everybody is there, and so that to bridge that gap, because the praise team over there is still wrestling. They may be taught, but the congregation is still at the same level. So one of the things that I think is needed. One pastor often get upset in church, and he said, "You wanna bring a picnic here for me train them. I am not. This is not their homes." In other words, he was saying the parents were not taking up the responsibility. They were just dropping them off at the church, and then some of them wouldn't even come to church. They drop them off and expect the church to fix them. And then that's it. So maybe the church, you're right, the family needs to take back their responsibility in the training and the teaching process. So so then if you're going to get the next generation and to break the back of some of these traditional lessons that's been taught that we can't seem to get rid of, and one of the thing is to go into invite the parents to some of these sessions.
Yes.
Okay.
There you go. And we're on the verge of doing that to the point where today Stacey was doing a parenting session. I did one today, but I had both parents and children and teachers, and she the same. So we started in these areas. But one thing you said that I really love about it is that even though it may appear that it is hard, because when I listen to it, it's so that way, it's pretty easy. I tell you, because today we are suffering so many different um, catastrophe in Jamaica, and people are now alarmed. People reach a point of fear, and once they accept that there is judgment at our tail, and if we start putting these things together, they will make amends because remember, once you gather more information and new information, you're going to enhance your performance in literally every area, and you're going to pass on these not new values, but values that you haven't been practicing, and you're going to see result. For example, if we pray positive things in the atmosphere, in our family, in our home, without even realizing the psychology is there's going to be positivity because the energy that you use to pray positivity, it is the same energy you use to believe that the positivity is there, and it will come. And there's a study done by some overseas company, and they said that the church, this is awesome. They said that the church is one of the most sacred place, and it provide more therapy than anywhere else. They say everybody else is suffering depression, all these things. When they do the research on church people, we have the minute depression. We have all these social ills and psychological ills. The church people have less of it. Why? Because what we do, we pray positivity into the atmosphere, and it comes back down. Because the Bible talk about it. Once you lift up the Father, I'm going to send on the stuff. But how we did it is good, but we just need to add some more to it and shape it up in a little bit more in a diamond way with understanding the true human being. Because you're not just spiritual only or physical, you have other aspect of you.
Okay. I want to ask you a question, Minister Garvey. Based on what I said earlier, saving the next generation, you're gonna come across all kinds of belief system as well, because you're not talking about a church, you're talking about a generation, right, of children coming out of various homes, dealing with various struggles and maybe even mindset, religion, beliefs, or disbelief, whatever. So what is the foundational thing that you start with? Because you're bringing, it's like you're bringing a generation in line with to a certain mindset, a certain way of thinking or belief. You're offering them something that is going to rescue them from where they are. So what is your approach to that, and what did you see in the schools and the places you've been that would put upon your heart to start this drive?
All right. So the first thing I'm gonna say is that the Bible is always the common denominator in everything. And the Bible has all the principles that we need to operate in every and any atmosphere at all. When it comes to children, when it comes to parenting, when it comes to issues, when it comes to everything. One of the things I appreciated about the Holy Spirit is that before he even downloaded Rescue the Next Generation, one of the things that he allowed us to do was to start a school tour, right? And so we went into different schools and different atmospheres, and we saw the different issues and we saw the different problems that existed, right? And then he allowed us to go into different spaces, and so we saw issues with women, we saw issues with men, and so all of these things combined, and then the Lord just downloaded what this assignment was and what this mission was. One of the greatest teachers that I've ever known is experience. And so what God, and I mean, let me just say this from now, we really and truly don't have all the answers. The truth is that as we go through each and every situation, many times it's in the going through a session that the answers come, right? And so we're not gonna throw it out there that look, we're coming with the answers. No, we're coming we're coming in obedience to what God said to us to do. And while we're on the journey, while we present ourselves, the key is really going into the room, going into the atmosphere and listening to everything that is making a sound. And based on the sound that it is making, then you'll know the right remedy to put to it. Some children, they just want to be heard. Some children, they just want to be loved. Some children, they just want the issues of their souls to be dealt with. Some children are suffering from rejection. So you just preparing a nice plate of lunch, a nice plate of food with a piece of cake on it and a nice bottle of juice and give them. To them, that is love. And what you find is that just by doing that, you planted a seed of love to say, look, you're appreciated, you're loved, and you're being served. And as I was saying to Dr. Harvey this evening, that many times when the Lord gives us assignment and say, do this kind of presentation a particular way, we might just see it as something that, oh, well, we're supposed to just do that. However, we don't know that this might be a ministry to someone who has never been served their entire lives, someone who has never had anybody look out for them that way and not treat them like a hog, right?
Yeah.
Like a pig, then you just throw down the food. You
Right.
understand what I'm saying? And so, and as Dr. Harvey mentioned just now, a lot of I've had to learn how to hug my children because I was very rough. Like that's how I grew up, you know. And you evangelist Providence would have seen me around my children. You'd have experienced that. And so a lot of things, and even just being a mother to my children was preparation for even going into this project. Because I mean, you would have known about my oldest son with some of the challenges that I would have had with him. And believe it or not, three-quarters of the parents that I speak to most of the time are going through that same problem. You
Yes.
understand what I'm saying? And so it is so, and this is why I believe that nothing in our lives will ever be wasted. And so going through our seasons and our journey of obstacles and challenges was preparation,
Mhm.
right? Learning to listen and to really hear what God is saying was another level of preparation. Also, going into the space, being still even just for a moment to allow the Holy Spirit to take over to say, okay, this is going to be your approach. So I'll share this and then I'm finished. I went to a session today with some parents, and it's from the inner city, and so their way of life and the way they speak and the way they talk can be interpreted in another way if you really don't listen to what they're saying.
Mm.
What I heard were parents who had a heart and a mindset for their children to break cycles and be successful in life. When you see a parent in the inner city leave what they're doing, leave the street corner, leave the excitement that going on the roadside, and come to a parent conference to hear strategies and get information how to raise their children, right? In even the way of the Lord, that is a blessing. And so what you find too is that even though the children need to be poured into, the parents need pouring into as well, because the parents are around the children way more than we are. And so when we drop that bit of information and we drop that nugget and we drop that session, they're the ones that are going to have to carry on, right, with the children and nurture them and give them the love and the good guidance. And so you see where the Holy Spirit is saying to us, look, you're not just going to do rescue the next generation and just focus on children. There are parents that, listen, they did not get the right parenting, so they really don't know how to do this thing, right? And so I'm giving you strategy, I'm giving you information to pour into these parents so that they themselves can become better individuals, then becoming better parents, then ultimately raising better children. So that's the strategy.
Well, it is a good strategy. And how long has this been? Have you started? Just recently?
So the school tour started from February, as you would have known. However, Rescue the Generation birthed in October 2023. And we did our girls session on the 28th of October. And we'll be doing our boys session this Saturday, December 2nd.
So is it the next generation is what age group are you talking about?
So we're really focused on children. And so we start from 6 to about 21.
Yeah.
So you've gone and how are the churches responding to this?
To be honest, the churches that we have come across so far have been receptive. On Sunday, we'll be going to St. Anna Praise House, Reverend Carlton Daly, who invited us to come and do a parenting seminar at church, right? And so what they want to do is to cater to mothers, especially the young mothers who, teenage pregnancy. but really mothers in general, to give them guidance on how to nurture their children, the importance of Sunday school, the importance of them being whole, and all of that. Bishop Giftord Wallace, who is a part of Rescue the Next Generation, I believe, praise Jesus, has also invited us to come over to St. Mary at Kairos Ministries to do a session regarding the importance of Sunday school. Right? And there are a few more other ministries who we will be visiting, in short order with this project, whether it is a parenting session or whether it is for children.
Yeah, somebody wrote, some parents were not exposed to love where their parents hug on them, listen to them, give them a voice. So it's hard for them to reciprocate that to their children. And that is what I was asking about, bridging this gap of what they're used to. Because you meet grown men who doesn't even understand how to express themselves because they didn't have a father figure. They've never had anyone hug them. They were told to toughen up, don't cry, men don't cry, and all these things that they were. And when I was growing up, um I was looking to get some of this love, attention, this teaching from the older folks, and I find that they did not. And there was a angry in my generation. I was angry and frustrated, and they were angry and frustrated because they didn't know how to give me what I wanted, and I wasn't getting what I wanted from them. So you had anger on both sides, frustration on both sides, and nobody knew how to come together because there was a lack, just a major lack. So in passing on this new pass on that is very important that we have something to pass on to them that they can practice at home, that they can very something tangible that they can use, because this type of stuff is not easy to pass on. It's not
Yeah,
easy. It's not easy to pass on.
yeah. What we're doing, Stacey and I have been discussing it. We've been introducing it. There's a major problem with if I am trying to love somebody and I don't know what is their love language. So,
Right.
for example, I am somebody that is love when you give me words of positive affirmation. But Stacy is a gift, and I keep telling her nice things. That's not loving her. It's
That's
loving me
right.
because I'm giving her what
Mhm.
I think is love for me. And so that is one of the things that we're trying to pass on as well. And there's a systematic way of doing it. And there's a guy named Gary Chapman. I've been doing some work with him, and I've been using his books, The Five Love Language. And
Mhm.
what we're going to be doing is doing some tests with some of those individuals to find out what are their love languages, and if they're married couple, they both do it. Same thing with the children, and then you find out, because one of the thing about this whole love thing, and all of us in it, we give what we know, and the thing that we think we know to give to somebody else is what we feel, but that's not what they want, and that's what they feel.
That is very, very,
Yeah,
very powerful to start with something like that, because I read that book when I got married, right?
yeah, yeah,
And I find that I thought, wow, I didn't even know there was such a thing as love language.
exactly,
I know what I like,
right.
and what and I, like you said, I'm giving to you based on what I like. and
Yeah,
and going back to what we started with, the tradition. We teach what
yes,
we like and how we like to do things and what
right,
makes us feel better or feel nice, and we think it's right, but it's what you like. And so
yeah,
I'm putting it up on you, and you are supposed to like it
like
because
it,
I like
yes,
that.
yes,
And so that's a very good place to start. It may seem like it's all about love, but it's wider than that. How do you
right,
want to be? How do you? It's a way of saying, how do you want to be accepted?
yes,
Right? Yeah, that's a big word that speaks acceptance, because if I give you what you like, is a way of accepting you,
yeah,
based on where you're at and what you like and who you are. So that's a very good place to start, because the love language, I think that's a huge thing. And
yeah,
as women, we meet upon that all the time with some of these these men clueless about.
yeah,
They think
it's yeah,
every woman want that. Oh, just give her some flowers, and
yeah,
and
yeah,
do you love me? You know, what? Say me love you, and those kind of.
Yes, that's true. Yeah,
Those
yeah.
kind of things. And and come on, not touch me, man. And they don't like to. So that's amazing. If you know what these kids like from an early age, that will really open up a whole room
Right.
to be able to bring them to a place where, yeah, where you can understand them and give them what they need to grow from where they are into this
Where they are.
next.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
So we're
that's
hoping to go there. You made a point, but I want to spin off it. When I did early childhood, there was a big debate about the nutritional value of the breast versus the
mm,
nutritional value of tin milk. Uh, but when they actually did the study, the nutritional value of the milk lasts. But what was interesting is that you use a word about acceptance.
mm-hmm.
While you're getting that breast from that mother, that's acceptance.
Yes,
and then
yes,
and
yes.
then you're learning it by that process, and you're getting food as well. When you get older, it become a part of your genetic makeup in real life, so you want it all the time. And when you're not
That's
getting
right.
it, you feel dejected, feel rejected, abandoned, and then a whole new psychology come into it. And that is one of the things I think a lot of us who are in the church, we're lacking that breast continuity in our friendship with friends, because that acceptance, Lord, sir, them accept me, and that you said it gently, but it's a powerful, and a lot of us is suffering from it, and
Acceptance,
it goes way
acceptance.
back, way back, way back. It goes way back. So we're hoping to break that.
And that's why I said earlier, why do you do what you do?
Yeah,
From Yeah, why do we do what we do? And we've been doing what we do for years, and we never stop to say, wait a minute, why am I even doing this?
yeah,
Why did I do this? And where did I get this from? Where did I get this habit from? Why do I feel that I need to behave certain way? And I can't even explain why, but I keep doing it
yeah,
because it's like I want to be accepted. And I think we're passing this on down to the next generation, that you it's not okay to be different. It's not okay to ask questions. So it's good that we're looking at them as individuals,
individuals, yes,
not just some kids that we can just tell what to do and just shuffle them around, but they have a mind. They have opinions. They eventually have their own family. So that's a huge task you're taking on. So I pray that God will give you guys the strength and the wisdom to do this, because I'm telling you, you're like you have to deprogram some things too as well, right?
right, yeah,
To be able to reprogram. And there's a saying that there's no kids anymore. There's just from babies to man and woman, them skip the kid stage
yeah, yeah,
altogether. So from them a baby, you see this little girl, we saw this video, this little girl taking money out of her father's purse and shoving it down her. I mean, she's not even, I don't think she's one yet, right? And she's taking the money from her father's purse and shoving it down her little chest, like she knows. So they already have their own little personalities. So it's going to be quite a task to but it's a good step, and it's a
yeah,
needed step, because we were brought up in a generation where you don't ask questions, just do what you're told. And so it's good that we can, yeah, I mean, it's true. When you got saved, Tracy, sorry, Stacy, and what did you walk into? What kind of a program did you walk into?
So the good thing about me being saved was where I got saved, which was inside of the prisons. And so what you have was a lot of rehabilitation programs, um, while I was there, and different churches that came in. So you found that I went through a process of defrosting. And at the same time, while I was defrosting, I was getting information. And so my mental, emotional, and spiritual health got the chance to be fed by all of these different avenues that were available inside of the prison. So I was mentored by a Reverend Gregory Morris, who was the chaplain for the institutions. And what you found is that different ministers and pastors who were in training, in Bible school or in UAR, even overseas, came in the prison to do different studies. And I think we normally call it SB in high school, but it's really their assignments to write back papers to carry into to make up for the degree or whatever it is that they were doing. So God would have allowed me to get, you know, this opportunity to be a part of all of these different programs. And so I was fed when I was in the institution. And so being in the institution, getting saved, walking into the life of a believer was okay inside of the institution. The shocker was when I came home. Yeah, the shocker was when I came home. And I saw these different elements, and I could recognize that there was this big emotional, not just high, but people operating based on emotions, how they feel about a particular situation. And the heartbreaking part for me, and I'm so careful in saying this, the heartbreaking part for me is that we don't practice what we preach. So we preach about transformation and deliverance. We don't practice it, because the truth is that a lot of us say stuff, but we don't believe it. And so we don't understand that transformation is a process, and it can take somebody up to 30, 40 years to really live out their full transformation. You understand what I'm saying? Deliverance is also a journey. It's not an overnight thing. So you might find that a lot of times people go through the process of the vomiting and the you know, the newspaper and all of that. But then there's a journey you have to be poured into after that. You know, you have to be a part of different programs and projects that, and you have to be filled up after that, that ensure that you don't go back to the Bible said don't go back to your own vomit. You understand what I'm saying? And so and I realized too, woman of God, that a lot of us don't really have a lot of patience. So we're not patient with people on their journey of being saved and walking out the life of a believer. Right? It's not instantaneous. It is a process. I remember it was the other day I was saying, you know, this I've been saved for over like what 15 years now. And it was the other day I was delivered from something. And I'm saying, it's not that you're not saved, it's not that you're not anointed and God don't call you. It's a process, because sometimes you don't even know that the issues are there. So,
But being
so that
saved
was
and
really my experience.
delivered is two different things. So you can be saved and you're not delivered. You know,
Definitely,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely.
there's nothing instant about this. I was speaking to someone the other day and I said, do you have anything set up for those who are coming in this in this season, right? Because after Sunday, there's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday to live through, right? And if you don't have anything set up between that, you're gonna lose them between Sunday and the next Sunday. Some folks only have Sunday, only think Sunday is it's all about, and then between Monday they just live anyhow and then come back Sunday they got saved again. So they're consistently going through the process of the same first step, and they never get to step two because we don't know how to deal with what they're coming in with. And it's a different generation now that we're dealing with. And they have you've got to be ready for the questions that, you know, like I said, if you've never been in a dance hall, right? If you have never been in certain situations, how can you minister to them when they come to you? So we've got to have these things set up in place for when they come, that there is something that's feeding them, that's nourishing them, and kind of consistently. I mean, deliverance does not always have to be falling down. People think deliverance just falling over and vomiting. Somebody falls, they run, go grab plastic bag and paper towel, assuming that somebody has to vomit up something to be delivered. Sometimes it's just a change of mind, a change of, of thinking, and you know, and the Bible talks, let this mind be in you. You know, that it was in Christ Jesus. It's a lifestyle change. Not everybody who drops on the ground have demons ready to be, you know what I mean? So that's what we see as change. And once them drop, oh yeah, did you see that? Yes, they no. And then all you did was the enemy is so cunning that him show you exactly what you want
You want to see. Yes.
And so once you're done with him, you say, all right, I know you're gonna recover because them things that me gone, me just come. You know what I mean? So, and then that person, oh my God, you don't know the hell that they're going through. So we've got to, our mindset needs to change. What is deliverance? What is Christianity? What is the process of Christianity? Is it just a one drop or one word? Oh, here comes the man, the bishop now. Bishop Wallace, how are you? Let me put you on so everybody see your he said he here he is. How are you, man of God? Look at him.
I'm doing great, thank God. And
In
thank you
a
so very
candy
much
store. How are you?
for
Ready
having
to
me.
start trouble?
I like to be in good company.
We're at a good place. You came in at a good place. Your colleagues have answered their questions. They've been doing well. They've been very good students. So you can be clapped for them. They've been doing well while the teacher or the was awake. So we've been looking at. I mean, you kind of provoked some things when I was watching you last night. But I woke up this morning asking the question why. I mean, you're from the old school, right? You talked about that yesterday. That you're not a young chap anymore. Me neither. I've joined the old school a couple months ago. And there's some things I've ever said to you. Why am I even doing this? I've been doing this for 40 years. I mean, since I got saved, and I really don't know why I'm doing it. Who came up with this idea? Why we even implemented it in the church? And people are in the church and they're doing stuff for years that they've never asked the question, why am I doing this? And we were looking at the culture. Is it tradition? Is it religion? And so we're talking about all of that mixed up together with what are we passing on to the next generation? Are we passing down? Are we inviting people to a program of this is how you do it? Are we inviting them to Christ, where Jesus said, upon this revelation I will build my church? What are we handing down, and how do you see tradition as a problem in all of that, and how do we break that? I think they've answered most of that already, but what is your take on that, if that
All
makes
right.
sense?
I'm sorry that I missed most of it, but I'm actually coming from a wedding, and
Mhm.
I ran out at the last part because and Stacy told me today that this was going to be happening. I
Yeah,
think it is very important that we speak, because one of the things that has happened over time is that the church has been silent, and we have been silent with
too long,
empires.
too
So
long.
we speak where we are, but we do not speak publicly and collectively,
Yes,
because a lot of us are defending us
yes.
and necessarily defending truth. One of the things that you have said that is extremely important is the statement that Jesus made that many of us seemingly are forgetting.
Hmm.
It is my church.
My
And I
church.
think that that is one of the things that we need to begin to really emphasize, because we have the hand of the Lord in a way of speaking. In fact, when you look at in Revelation, Jesus was saying to one of the churches, I am standing at the door and knocking. In other
Mm.
words, we lock Jesus out of him own church. And I'm have to stand up outside and a knock. And no, seriously, it's Jesus' church. And he had to be saying, behold, I
Let me
stand,
in. I'm here.
yeah, man, outside. And let me in, a brother or sister, let me in.
Eh.
I think that as we talk about tradition, one of the things that we don't want to divorce, or we
Yeah,
want to perpetuate, is that tradition is a bad thing.
that's right.
Because sometimes when we speak to tradition, we
Okay.
seem to want to speak to it in a bad and negative way.
Mhm.
Tradition is not negative, but when tradition becomes priority
Come on.
over the word, that is when we begin to have serious problem. Because as I was saying to somebody one day this week, that people are attracted to ministries for different things. The worship, it doesn't matter if the ministering of the word is not really up there, but they love the worship, and you can't beat them for that. Then another church, the worship might not be very good, but the pastor is very prolific. There is another church where you probably don't get the preaching and the worship is second to none. And because we are created to love and to be loved, people will respond to that. So we don't want to beat down what tradition is. The issue I begin to have is when we begin to make it about us, and we
Mhm.
begin to say if it doesn't look like what we look like, sound like how we sound, going the direction that we are going, all of you are bound for somewhere else. And that is when we now begin to behave like heaven is going to be a gated community, where there is going to be a set over there and the other like a spoon over there. So we have to get past that. And there has to be now a kingdom mindset where I can appreciate the fact that even though there is something that is working for you, it might not work over here. So I happen to preach, and I don't think it's bad to say this, in several Baptist church. And as I go into the Baptist church, I recognize that there is a difference in what I call administration, not from the administrative level, but in manifestation. So you'd gone to one where they are very upbeat and clap hands and speak in
Correct.
tongues. Another will not have it. They're going to be very quiet and sing their hymns. And then another set up the head, should be in them pencil and carry on. So I asked a friend of mine, how is it that you belong to the same union and you are having this difference? And he used a term that I never heard all of my life. Said that we are contextual. So it might work for these over here, but it
Okay.
don't work for those over there. And what we have to do is to separate what we like versus the truth of scriptures.
Yes.
Because the
Yes.
truth of scriptures
Yes.
cannot be bent. It can't be twisted. It can't be rearranged.
Mhm.
Jesus' words are final. Another Bible will never be written. But we
That's
have to
right.
also, there's nothing wrong with saying that this is what we prefer over this side. So look here. I want you to come to my place wearing hats. From my place, I will say it make you look elegant. Place somebody will say you're covering your head. But when I'll Stacy slap on our wig with no our head cover, I'm sorry.
Hallelujah.
I apologize.
Oh,
I,
God.
I,
Oh, hey,
I,
are you a drop word about my week, but you're just a people and Stacy, is that it?
no,
Ah.
and you see the thing about it. This is the word, the term I want. We have to be able to distinguish between preference and precept,
Yes, sir.
because some of the things that we prefer are not precepts.
Mm,
And there is
mm.
nothing wrong with our preferences, but we should be very open and honest to say to people, this is what we
This is what,
prefer,
yes,
and
yes,
stop making it a
yes,
precept.
yes, yes, yes.
And that is where the whole matter of tradition then start to becoming a shackle, because we, a lot of things that we want to do, not a lot, but some of the things that we want to do are not rooted in scriptures. And
Mhm.
what we are doing is making things that we prefer to become precepts, so that we can twist scriptures to satisfy what we want to bring across to people. When I was growing up, the setting was, you come to church, we don't have people preparing to preach. So anybody preach that Sunday, you
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
till they get to church. They tell you that you are going to preach. And I remember a little man came, and he was telling us that the Bible said we don't have to play no games. And as a youth, you start to, yeah man, him say, you know what the Bible said? The Bible said marvel not. so, so while we are reading marvel, he heard marble.
No
So
joy,
I
no
said,
fun.
marble not.
Marble.
And the thing is, while we are finding it extremely humorous, to him it was gospel. Don't
Yes,
play not to him,
that's true. That's
because the
true.
Bible says marble not. And the unfortunate thing is that when this thing is advocated, there are people who embrace it as truth without going to the words. And we have
Yes,
to get back to the
yes,
place,
yes.
Evangelist Providence, where we start to behave like the Bereans, so that when we hear something, respect leaders, and we must trust leaders enough to know that they are representing and representing God. But the truth is that as much as our intentions might be very good, we are not always right.
Mhm, mhm.
And the people that we serve must get to the place where what becomes important to them is what I say as the leader of my church. They go back and match it with scriptures. And if it cannot be defined in scriptures, it is tradition, and it can be bent, it can be changed, and it must not necessarily be followed.
Yes, yes, yes. And I think that's what I was that's what I'm concerned about, because I'm there now. And unfortunately, I've been in church all my life, and the pressure has been just do as your as your, yeah. And especially being in the limelight, you have to be careful what you change and what you accept, what you don't accept, because you can be seen as rebellion, even though you may be doing the right thing, right? But because it's not accepted by the people that you're probably in that you serve or whatever, then it seems like you're rebellion because you've been doing it all these years. Why you're questioning it now? And so that's where I am. That's why I said even earlier, I said this is a real Jesus moment, real to real, because I'm at the place now where I want to experience this Jesus from myself, because most of the time we were just very emotional, beings. If church is going on and you're not shouting, something wrong with you, right? If you're not running up and down, something wrong with you. Yeah, if you're not amening at every sentence, something wrong with you. And everybody's attention is on you because something must be wrong because you're not shout today. And it's a part of tradition.
Yeah.
um when I went to White Bible College, and when I came back to my church, my ears couldn't name grass, as you say, because I couldn't understand why they're making so much noise. I can't hear what I'm saying. I want to hear, so I can say amen. And I was getting annoyed. That I was before that it was okay. That's what I was used to. When I came back and I was sitting in a quiet chapel and not a sound, I would sing at services, and people started to cry. I remember one incident. I sang at this church, and the pastor came and said, "Oh my Lord, the Spirit of God is so strong. I cannot preach." I'm looking around. Minister nobody fall down. Minister nobody around. Everybody was quiet, right? And I was so glad for that training, man of God. It really did me so good, because I thought if you're not making up noise, if you're not saved, you're not spiritual, you're not filled, you're not anointed. If you're not yelling and screaming, it's not powerful. You know what I mean? And that's stuff that I'm trying to deprogram myself from, because when I preach and it's quiet, I say, Lord, I'm talking pure foolishness, because nobody not saying nothing, nobody not saying amen. But those are some of the most powerful
Yeah.
sermons
Yeah. Yeah.
I
when
I
people are listening.
I had that conversation this morning with a young man that I mentor that is a preacher, and I made reference to a conversation I had going somewhere in Clarendon to minister. It's the first time that I'm going there, and they were having a mission service talking about a divine connection. And let me tell you something: when you go somewhere for the first time and people don't know you, they assess you. A
Yes,
whole heap of them miss God because them are waste them time and try your
yes,
spirit.
yes, yes,
And by the time God speaks to their condition and they get and them kind of really reach to the place now where they can receive something, they
fully.
waste 70% of the time
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
mapping you out and trying you out. And I remember saying something, and I said to them when I went to minister that I'm not going to preach because I heard God. And one of the things I've learned over time, I don't allow people to pull me into mold. You did not call me. You can't tell me what to do. I know who I hear. And we have to understand that in the kingdom, there are methodologies. Jesus got to Lazarus' tomb and he spoke with a loud voice, as the word of God says. But when he went into Jairus' daughter's place, you don't get the impression that they were, he just said, damsel, I say unto thee, arise. And while you were speaking, Evangelist Providence, I hear the situation with Elijah when he got a little upset results that were, or whatever was said to him, and he went in the cave. The earthquake came, the wind came, but God was the still small voice. And one thing I said to the church, or I said to my friend, is that preaching will excite you, and especially full gospel Pentecostal thing. A lot of us cannot preach without the music and the drum.
Come on, come on,
And look
come
here,
on.
that has its place. We're not kill it. I've gone some places to minister, and the minute I get the mic, this stuff, and I would say, not now, son.
Yeah,
Let
yeah.
me make my foundation, because to you must be able to offer substance over hype.
Can you stick
And
a
a
pin
lot of
right
us,
there? I want to respond to that because
yeah,
I was speaking to a musician and the young man said to me, he said, you know what? Sometimes I just want to listen. I don't want to be playing, you know. And when I'm listening and I'm saying, man, I want to hear this, I hear, come on, musician, flow with me. And is, and that's it. You can't listen. And and I never thought of that. I never thought of that. That was because most of the time we complain that musicians are not saved and them need Jesus and they need this and they need whatever. And yet they don't even have a chance to hear the word
yeah,
because they're busy trying to you need them to get going. And if, like you said, if God give you a word, you don't really need all of that, right? The
yeah.
people want to hear the word, and we become so used to the hype that ask them what you say after church over, them can't tell you.
They went tell you that you're a hot preacher. Hey man, hot is a man. Me
You
like
had to.
he say, me don't know about him hot.
Yes, yes, that's
And
I
it,
don't
but
know if Dr. Harvey psychoanalyzing me now. I see him laughing.
they Yes, the noise I'm finding, like I said, when I came back to church, I was annoyed. I'm saying, I can't sit down. Me can't hear what the man is saying. And me can't see because I'm sitting there standing. So I was finding the same thing that I was jumping about. I'm beginning to find annoying because I want to hear, especially if it's a good word. I want to hear it, but because the church is so used to noise and hype, if you're not doing that, then it's not powerful. How do you break out of that? I think
Um,
it begins with the leaders to make sure that it starts with the leadership because the other ones are coming in with this hype thing.
and you are correct about that because the change has to start from the top.
Yes.
Is not the tail wagging the head. Is starting from the top. And I think that a lot of us need to begin to change or to think seriously how we do church and
Mhm.
what becomes priority. I remember, I'm quite sure maybe all of us on this platform and some persons who are watching us by way of other social platform, Facebook, would remember when we had this book that is called The Purpose Driven Life.
Yes, yes.
And in fact, when I went away once and I brought back enough copies for the amount of believers were there because we were now using that for Bible study. But before I read The Purpose Driven Life, I read by the same Rick Warren, The Purpose Driven Church. And he spoke about a wave. And he was saying that surfers don't create waves. But what they do is that they ride the wave when it comes. One of
Mhm.
the things that he said in that book, I will not remember a lot of things in there, but one thing I will never forget. He said that many times we plan our programs and we're asking God to bless it. And then
Ah,
he said, how do we
yes.
know that what we have planned is
that's what
what
God
God
wants.
wants to
Yes,
bless? Then he went further by saying, what we should do is to ask God
that's
to
right.
allow us to be involved in what he
He's
wants to
saying,
Ah,
bless.
come
Because let
on.
me tell you something, with the best of mind, best of intention, a number of things that we do, God does not necessarily want to bless that
Come
because
on
at
now.
the
Come
end of
on.
the day, motive, and God is going to weigh our motive because a lot of us are behaving like we're stars. And I
Hmm.
tell people that if you're a star and you're on planet Earth, you're a falling star.
Come
Star
on.
not belong down here, so.
Come
And a
on.
lot of God's people are behaving like we're stars. So we plan our programs to make us
Hmm.
look good. And it's not about giving glory to him. And sometimes it's not even about edifying the body. And a number of times it's not about even bringing transformation to lives. It's to make what we do look good.
Yes, yes.
yeah, yeah.
And that we're becoming performers and entertainers and
You just
Hollywood
said that.
stars and all of that. And that was one of the topics I had. But the other I said, man, God, you give me these topics, you're gonna get me in trouble because are we ministers of God? That's why I mentioned the text earlier about what Jesus said to Peter when he got the revelation about the church. He said, you are the Christ, and he said, upon the revelation, you must build my church, right? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, because Peter understand that the church is about him. the savior of the world, the healer, deliverer, the way maker, it's all about him. And if the church is about him, then we won't have all of these problems. I don't have to shout to get my point across. I don't have to run to get, just stand and speak. The word is the what? That double-edged sword. It is powerful all by itself. Yes, there are times we're going to get happy. We're going to get excited. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a time, like you said, invite the program. One of the things I often said about, it says if we lift him up, he will draw. Right? One of the things I've often said, that we are created for his glory, right? So when I come to church on a Sunday morning or whatever day I come to worship, it's about him first, right? It's about giving him praise, giving him glory as a body. It's not where we come to the point where it's okay, all right, enough time for the word, and we kill the worship because we have a word. I mean, why you to talk about that, because see, I preach. I mean, why you to talk about that, because they are no guilty.
Well, I'm not so sure about the other part of it, because two things. Who know Gift and Wallace will understand that when it comes to worship. And while you say that, I'm going to come back to what you say, but I'm going to plug something else into that. And me, I'm going to get into trouble with my 59-year-old self, but I'm ready for that. I've gone some places to minister, and people want to lock me up in an office until it's time to preach. I tell them that I look like Eddie Murphy, but I am not he. I cannot handle and deal with leaders who come to minister the word of God, and you can't be engaged in what is important to God, which is worship.
Thank you.
You are going to be locked. Tell them me says so. You are going to be locked up in an office until it's time for you to preach.
Exactly.
My dear brother and sister, that is celebrity status. And the first thing that you are doing is to attracting some glory to yourself.
Yes, sir.
Because if you are better than giving worship to the God who calls you, you are not qualified to represent him. Worship is for everybody.
Come on now.
For the selected few. So you are going to be treating us like the Lord. And the rest of us up on the market truck. No gossip. Worship is for everybody. And that is something that we miss, because you mentioned it, woman of God. It is in lifting up Jesus that the drawing happens.
That's right.
And a lot of us want it in. I'm seriously challenged, when you sit there with your self-importance. You can't say anything, you can't do anything until you get that microphone in your hand. That is where we come back to what you said earlier. The acting and the performance. Then you have a role to play, not a God to glorify.
All right.
You are not being an example of what you're calling us into. And I tell anybody, if you see Gifton Wallace in any setting, whether I'm called to preach or I'm visiting and I'm not engaged in worship, step out, get a fresh bottle of extra virgin olive oil and pour it on me, because something is radically wrong. We have not valued the worship of God. And that is one of the reasons why we will not come into the worship of God.
And we're not experiencing the miracles.
Have not valued the worship of God. And that is why we cannot come into the worship of God. And these are my few words in Jesus.
In Jesus' name, glory be to God. And not only that, if a leader is not a worshiper, the church is in trouble. Yeah. If you're a leader and you're not a worshiper, yeah, no praise team can help you. Yeah. Because people don't understand that God honors leadership, and he's not going to come in there and have anybody come in there under you and bring things that you're not inviting in yourself. That is another. Uh,
You just as you said something, because the more we talk, emotions are triggered. But you talk about praise team can't lead you. Where we coming from, we never had praise and worship leaders. And I
all
do have a
right.
problem with them now. I want to make it very clear. I want to categorically state that. But it is now a role or an office, and not on occasion, not all occasion.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because you mentioned praise team, but in most settings, that is not what they are called. They are called praise and worship leaders. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to piggyback on the word leader,
Leader,
because the truth is, you cannot lead
where you
people
haven't been,
where you have not been. You can't take people
where
where
you
you have.
haven't been.
So what we do is we look for the best, and nothing is wrong with that, because the God that we serve is a God of excellence. But a number of times, the bests are sheer performers. They know when to dip to get us to shout. They will repeat the last chorus 40 times until we speak in tongues.
Mm-hmm.
Darby, you know you have to pray for me tonight, don't?
Hello, hello. You're all up in my Kool-Aid right there.
And and,
'Cause
and, and so
hello,
and so and so the thing is that we have this leadership where we have to allow people to understand that this is not performance.
that's right.
This is ministry. And you cannot offer what you do not have. So
Have.
your voice nice.
You're very
And
nice.
and, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to tell you something too. A lot of churches are worried about the harmony than the worship.
Hey,
Because come back over here, God, what you're hiding for. Because what is important is a presentation and not
why you
transmission.
come from people's show program? I come mess up things. Hello.
It
No,
is
no,
what
you
it
and I,
is.
you and I can talk until Jesus, because you're all up in my, and I said up. I remember when I was the praise team. That's it. You never had no, from all week till I used to say, if I lose my voice, tired, hoarse, I was the praise team. I was the consecration leader, right? We never have none of these part, two part harmony. We never have no 4 or 5 piece band and all of that. I was it. And we had the tambourine and maybe a guitar or whatever, and we had church. Now this man just come and mess up the whole thing, Minister Garvey, and just come and just do a U-turn and just mess up everything. So it's still in line with what we're passing on anyways. It's still passing on what we're passing on, and that is not this new thing that way. It's either we have this tradition clashing with this new wave thing, right? And it's like there's nobody in the middle trying to make the both of it work. And like you said, we can't throw away tradition. Is not a bad thing, right? But how you have the young people them say, well, no, no, them, I hate when they say this to me. You're old school, and you're old school, and they're saying, in other words, saying there's no value in that. You're old school. I take an offense to that a lot of times when they say that, because a lot of times I understand what is old school, but it's like they're dismissing the value of what they can learn from us who have been there, done that, and can pave the way, teach them something. And that's where the gap is gets muddy. It's very hard to pass on because they pretty much are not interested in that, because I think it's you've done your time, you know, that's you. It worked then. It's not gonna work now.
We have done our time. We have a lot to offer.
That's it.
One of the things you can't batter is experience. You can't eliminate that.
And you can't. So in our passing down, that's where I find the problem is. But I mean, how can you pass on something to a generation who doesn't see the value in it? And that's where my struggle is, because I find that if you go to the American church, or even the African, they value their elders. They value those that have gone ahead of them. What does Jamaican do? They what do the Caribbean folks do? I don't see the value in, we don't seem to value what. Why are you smiling? Am I saying some?
No, 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 no. I'm smiling because as you talk about the Jamaican church and you're making the comparison with the African, I remember some time ago I traveled to the United Kingdom, and I as minister, and I stood in the services just being sorry for the older folks who were there, who migrated from the Caribbean stuff, because the worship leaders seem not to remember
Ah,
that they were there.
yes, yes,
So
yes,
all the songs that they were singing were new songs, and it's a good thing the monitors were there. So even like their mouths were not engaged, but at least they were
yes.
reading the writing. And you can't do that because there has to be the balance. And one of the things, and that's why I say we can't shoot down tradition, because even in the New Testament, that was reference was made to that, the traditions that were handed down to you. So tradition is not something bad.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Tradition becomes something bad when God is moving in one direction. We are being static or stationary because this is what we know. And a lot of leaders, and I'm going to say this, a lot of leaders are afraid to change, because even when they find out what they were and teaching as being precept is not so, it is going to look bad now
mm-hmm.
to
To
come back
change.
and say
Yeah,
I am
yeah,
wrong.
yeah, yeah.
And most of us who are in leadership don't like to say that. Not all of us, most of us. And
Mm-hmm,
so we would rather to suffer under the lie,
mm-hmm.
die and wither as a ministry, instead of saying, we looked at things this way, we were not correct in our thinking. This
Right.
is where God is moving. Would I prefer see it dead?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. They so the Garvey and Minister Harvey, what you guys are young people who can relate to the traditional and can relate to the tradition in Bishop Wallace got them is young. They're in from the young school. But that's what we're facing now, and we need to, the thing is we need to find a place for both. And you're right. When I used to teach worship, and if I led worship, I said, don't come on Sunday morning teaching new songs. That's one thing you don't do. If you're going to teach a new song, make sure it's something that is very, easy to learn. And
Yes.
secondly, remember that you have elders, older people. Why are you throwing out the hymns? Even do a hymn. You keep them in mind that they don't know these songs and sing stuff. You're not just catering to young people. There's a whole generation of the range of generation in front of you, a range of ages. And so that's something that so that's why the worship also is not where it should be, because we're singing songs off YouTube. Some of these men. So here's a question that I'm trying to get to Minister Michael is, and I think Minister Garvey answered it in part. How do we bridge the gap now to between the tradition and the new, whatever, that the generation that is coming up that is taking over our part? Do you think that's why a lot of times ministers die with the baton in their hands, because they feel like if they hand it over to a younger generation, it's gonna water things down, or what do you think that what the problem is, why we can't get it together, where to bridge this gap, which is
It's,
very,
it's, it's important to have dialogue, and the dialogue must be very open and honest. And the dialogue must divorce itself from our personal feelings
yeah.
and preferences. Until we get there, we are always going to be having the struggle on both ends. We must talk,
Mm-hmm.
because one of the things that we must understand, is that when God puts us together as a church, we are considered family,
Mm-hmm.
and there has to be the dialogue. We have to talk. And
Yeah.
in speaking, we have to understand that once somebody doesn't agree with what you think, or they question what you do, they are not attacking your authority. Because especially those of us who are in leadership, when we are being questioned, our authority is being challenged. And also, those who are speaking to leadership, speaking up to leadership, must also understand that if you are going to speak to leadership and you are seeking clarity, it must be done within the context of respect. Because
Yes.
sometimes we are being rude and just think that we are being truthful when we really are being rude. So the dialogue must happen, but respect must happen from both ends. Those who are speaking up, because the truth is, whether we want to admit this or no, the 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 people that we have now are coming much more brighter than we are. That is now the reality of the church, because when we were growing up, especially in full gospel and the Christian circles, there were not a lot of bright people with degrees. So they would have go up to the church up the road where and the post missus go. They wouldn't come down to our place. But what is very good is that our own children are growing up and still loving our churches and staying. And I said it when we met together yesterday. What COVID did is to open up the platforms so that people can see, because it's like, and I hope I'm not exaggerating when I say this, when they used to say the Catholic Church would not allow the people to read the Bible because they wanted to just tell them their truth
That's right.
until look man gonna nail up the something and say the just shall live by his faith. And that starts one whole level of reformation. We have to get to the place where we understand as leaders that not everything that is asked us is a challenge. Because the truth is, there are some who are challenging the authority of leaders. We're not going to
Mhm.
go wrong with that. Because you have some people with them like a Jezebel spirit and some people who are manipulative and dictatorial and want to be up in leaders' face. We're not saying that. But leadership has to get to the place where we can discern when somebody has a genuine question
That's
and
right.
they want to know, because chances are what they are seeing on the internet, or maybe they're going to university, they're becoming a part of the Christian fellowship there, and they're seeing other things. And the truth is, times when we are locked in our tradition, and this is what we believe, and this is what we want, and this is what we will do, they go other places
Oh,
and
yes.
see persons who do not subscribe to our tradition, but the quality of their Christian life is admirable. Them are going to ask questions.
Yes. Yes.
Are going to ask questions. So we cannot be um, threatened as leaders. Look here. What if I bright people in the church I pastor, brighter than me? It was at age 58 that I got a first degree. One little man asked me, "Sir Pastor, how are you did I preach all along?" Couldn't believe that. But when I did the diploma in theology in 1990, ministry movement would not allow me to sit down in a classroom. COVID opened the opportunity and I capitalized. So even when I was in Africa at 2 a.m., I am getting up in Africa to be in class. Yeah. So we have to understand that there are people there who, the truth is that some of them from a management place, they sit in boardrooms, they
Come
see
on.
how things
Yeah.
are
Come
done.
on. Yeah.
So when they
Hmm.
are sloppy, they will want to ask some questions. You can't take offense at that. And also, those of us who God has made brighter than our leaders is not to attack them, is to
Hmm.
help. And there's a way to do that. So the gap has to be bridged. There has to be open and honest dialogue. And I believe that if we begin to speak, we can have better understanding instead of
That's very
defending
true.
and
That's very
defense.
true. And I like
I have
what
a,
you. Well.
I have
Go
a
ahead.
I have a psychological reaction to. I'm listening to past and the leadership thing. I hope I don't get into trouble here.
We're
But
all in trouble already, sir.
but it's a psychology though of control and rule. And it's funny the way how you spoke about this whole leadership, and the breaking the tradition that we have to make and bridge the gap.
Hmm.
But many of the leaders in our, it's not just in church in Jamaica where we lead to control and rule. And some of the stuff that we implement or install in the whole process of leadership, whichever style we're using, and there's no one style and no one can ever operate under one leadership style because we're in a dynamic environment.
Yes.
but some of the operation is control and rule, is a psychology, and they use it. It's we call it in psychology the terror theory, where you don't do this, you're going to go to hell, and it put people in a mindset of fear. And the Bible talk about fear, so we shouldn't be in this fear thing, and then they are using it in that kind of way to control and rule you. There's a guy named John C. Maxwell that made a point about, if you have to lead, when leading a generation or a church or an organization, and you have to be like a dictator and a dominate. Him say, lead by influence. You don't have to tell nobody that you're the leader. Lead by how you behave, lead by how you
Mm-hmm.
act. Create that transitional process. There's a lot of organizations and church that don't have no succession planning at all. If some of them
Yeah.
dead now, there's no pastor following up, no pastor learning, and we have to break that gap because
Mhm.
they control this in their mind. They are the who it all, and the psychology is them rule from beginning and them must rule from end. So there is no succession planning, and as such, nobody is being trained to make the transition. And so, in this whole dynamism that we are in now, in terms of to rescue this next generation, who is there in those positions now to carry over into the 21st century where things are changing, to mend that space and that gap, so it don't seem like we're going to be. I read a book called Things Fall Apart, where everything going to fall apart, and then we lose the church and lose the
Mhm.
power of saving grace and all of that. So the leaders like Bishop and Resurrected Garvey and Evangelist Providence need to step back now and say, listen, I need to identify, there's a number. It is 6 to 8 persons in the institution, the organization, the church, that we can start mentoring. I hear um, um, Reverend Wallace talk about mentorship. And mentorship don't mean you dictate your way.
Yeah.
You set up foundation for them to guide in their own
That's right. That's right.
posture, right?
Mhm.
But you give them the skills and competency that they will think. And one of the things that the church don't, the leaders in our church don't give, which is psychology, they don't develop and foster critical thinking. We must just think their way and the only way. And it creates this dichotomy, and I'm using the word dichotomy deliberately because I'm passionate about this part. It means to divorce and separate from. And some of the persons in the church who are doing well just leave
That's
because
right.
there's
That's
no
right.
growth and development for the transition. And so when I learn leadership, I am saying, but I am confused because I am I am leader for that side, and I come over here and learn it. Some of our leaders can't even tell it. You do a good job, Pastor. Stacey, I like how you preach that gospel. Providence, I was listening to your song this evening before I come on, and you sound like a mighty, powerful woman of God. We can't even motivate the persons in the church around me only when we're using the spiritual part. So there is the gap, and if we don't break that gap or cross over that bridge, there goes the leadership. There goes the problem. And so Stacy, all the reverends, and Bishop Wallace and Providence, we
Mhm.
need to have meetings with these leaders now.
Yeah.
So
I,
we're talking
Yes.
about the
I,
children and
yeah.
the parents. We need to meet these and give them this. They need to be on these platforms so we can get to help them to understand that they have to let go some things now because it's a new thing. So yes,
I'm very one of my gifting is I'm very observant, and I see loopholes, but I don't like to address them because I like what you said, Bishop Wallace, that there must be respect on both
side.
sides. Yeah, those that if I'm gonna express something to the leader, there must be respect, and he must respect that I have something to say and
Sure,
something to
yeah.
share. And I think the lack or the problem is sometimes is that the leaders are, or maybe I don't know if I should put in the form of a question. As a leader, Pastor Wallace, I think it's also your job to sort of know your sheep, right? Know what they're capable of and what they're not capable of. And there's some that are capable of something, of doing something, but the time is not right. So you're there as a shepherd to kind of. So I think sometimes the leaders are blind. They're clueless as to who they have in their congregation, and so they're not able to put people in place as they should, and they will know you're talented and certain, and they will not, because they feel threatened that it maybe if
Threatened.
you get one or two more hallelujahs more than they do, it's gonna mean that you're trying to take over. So being sometimes sitting in a congregation is difficult for me because I see a lot, and I don't want to say anything because it may be taken as criticism. I must honor a minister I spoke to this week, and I made a suggestion, and he said to me, "Woman of God, thank you, well received." And I said, "Oh, that was a weight off of my chest because I was saying, should I say anything? But that's what I think all the time, because most of the time it's not received because they see it as a threat, which is very sad. Because I may not be the one to walk it through, but I can say, Bishop, what about this? Bishop, what about that? And that I'm trying to help you. Bishop Ellis was the biggest church in Bahamas. He said, when somebody comes to my church and asks me a question, if I can't answer it, I'll send him to my deacon or to my secretary, whatever. Once they can answer the question, I still look good because they're a part of my congregation. So there's no need for me to try and be all things to all men when I have people around me who can assist me in different areas where I may be weak. And being a pastor don't mean that you know everything. You're not going to be strong in every area.
We embrace selective parts of the scriptures. But if you notice, and I want to plug this in. Call Moses, he did not call Jethro. I want that to be very clear. The Lord called Moses, he did not call Jethro. And Moses sat down from morning till evening, judging the people. And Jethro, his father-in-law, said to him, you are going to die. You're dead. And he said to him, what you are going to have to do now is to delegate. Make people deal with the small matters. But let me tell you something, and this is where I think Dr. Harvey will jump in. There are a lot of persons who missed out on some things when they were children, and once they assume power, they think that all they did not get when they were children, they must get it. So they must creep up everything. So they will not delegate, because all my life I have missed out on being in charge.
Yes.
So I am now, and I'm going to embrace that, even if it means killing me. Jethro said to me, you are not doing well. Get people, put them in place. And what is more, I don't think the most powerful part of that story is that Jethro spoke to Moses, I think the most powerful part of that story is Moses obeyed.
Yes.
Because what he was saying was in Moses' best interest.
That's right.
And he was not speaking. Look here. He was not speaking to his spirit. He was speaking about his health. Yeah.
And it's also not only best for Moses, it was best for the people as well.
Yes, because when he gets tired, he's not going to give good counsel.
That's right. That's right. And when somebody says on here, sometimes pastors are strong preachers, but not good leaders.
Yeah.
True. And the fact that you have a pastoral call does not necessarily mean you have an administrative call.
Oh, Jesus. And the fact that you're a good preacher, that means you're called for pastor either.
There you go. Now you are in trouble.
And that's what we have, a lot of great preachers, but the leadership part is not there. So that's what we're having a lot of one minister says, I don't know if this have any place in this conversation, but it says we're diamond, look out for thyself.
But the truth is that I think one of the things when Dr. Howard was speaking, he spoke about learning. And I think that we have to, first of all, be willing to learn, because at the end of the day, it is going to benefit us. And there is nothing selfish about what I just said about benefiting, because if you are in a good place, you are going to be in a better position to offer better service and leadership to the people that God brings, under your care.
Mm-hmm. I know I called on you guys last minute, so you're giving me your time, and you're just running in from a wedding with your pretty bow tie and Bishop Wallace looked like he's coming in from an event. So I know you're all tired, and we've been here for 2 hours, so we're gonna wrap up right here. Yeah, we've been on from 8 o'clock, and I don't know if you're feeling that there should be a part 2. I'm game, so you can as to where we're going to take this as a part 2. But thank you so much for your time. If there's any closing comments, I'll Minister Resurrection Garvey. I haven't said much, but I know you've been listening, because they are you're a team, so you're all speaking as one voice. Yes, somebody say yes, please. Okay, so we will look at part 2 and see what the Lord has to say. So, any closing remarks before we go? I'm so appreciative of the fact that you guys jump on without no 2-3 weeks and 4 days notice, and I didn't have to call your managers and your secretaries and
As we speak, and you were talking about closing remarks, there is a confidence that I have because the Bible speaks to a last day manifestation. And years ago, we would not be having this conversation because we would be doing our own thing. But God is raising up a generation, and generation don't mean younger. Generation mean a people, a kingdom. He's raising up a people with a kingdom mindset so that whether our names are established, yea or nay, we know that there is something that we can offer the kingdom. And if I preach, the counselor is over there because the people might get saved, but they might have sinner people problem. And I came on hearing you saying that, saved but not delivered. What do we do when I preach and sweat out my cologne and the people still struggling with something? We send them to Dr. Harvey. And when Dr. Harvey speak to them and they say, but he is speaking because he is trained in psychology, we send them go over Stacy. And Stacy tell them, say, look here, me have a resume and a rap sheet that me can tell you. Been there, done that, ain't going back. And then when they recognize that we put them through all of this now, and they want their souls to be lifted up to glory, we send them to Evangelist Marvia Providence, and she sing 2 songs for them and bless them in the name of the Lord. But the truth is that, you know, as I see the 4 of us divided, you know, by partitions, there's only one word I can use for this, and it's networking.
come on, sir.
And the kingdom have to do that.
Yes.
Get past our local churches
Yes.
and our prestigious offices.
Yes.
And begin to see the white. When we take off the blind, where all we are seeing is what we want to build here, to glorify ourselves and to fill our scoffers, and begin to do it like Jesus. My meat, my mission, my mandate is to do the will of Him. And I do believe that we are getting there when people who are busy like persons who are on this platform tired of beat me like me owe it some money. When we
What is wrong with this one? You can't behave yourself.
It's not because we want to talk and we look alike. We do this because we want to see the change in the kingdom. And we're pulling in others with us. And I believe that there is hope.
I'm still stuck and tired of beat me like me owe it some money. You are just too much. I think you miss your calling. Well done, thou good and faithful servants. Thank you. Networking. That's the big word and a small word all at the same time. And it's simple. If we are willing, it can work. God bless all of you. Thank you so much for giving me your time. Folks are calling back for part 2, so I'm gonna pull on you guys and to see where we can go with part 2, because I think it's a needed topic. If we're gonna meet the next generation, these are things that we need to address and find a way to bring it all together. So if everyone has said all they have to say, God bless you. Love you guys. I had a great time, and thank you so much for taking the time out. Thank you, Minister Harvey, for bringing these great men of God on tonight. I feel honored. Oh my God, that they came to be a part of Real to Real, and it was real for real. God bless you all. Mwah. Love you guys.
Blessings to you.
Blessings.
Thanks. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Yeah, good night.